All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Believe in Bills, presented by FanDuel. I am Adam Benini of WGRZ TV, Sports Talk Live Buffalo. With me, as always, Sal Majorana, the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle, and Dr. David Chao with us from the West Coast today. Dr. Chao, thanks so much for being with us. Former Chargers team physician. And now, I mean, you talk about informed speculation with injuries. They don't come much better than you, Dr. Chao. Thanks for your time today.
Well, I appreciate it. And I hope people realize, yes, I am not dealing in insider information. I'm dealing in insider knowledge about football, on how injuries happen and, mechanisms and video, etc. We do injury analysis. We don't do injury reporting.
Okay.
That's true. That's true. So what did you see? Yeah. What did you see Sunday? We want to get your thoughts on Ed Oliver because that's a huge loss for the Bills. Now I'm at the game, David, and I see him go down. He got right back up, and right away you could tell something was wrong, but he didn't really grab his bicep or do anything. He just kind of meandered off the field, and we had no clue. What did you see? Because I certainly didn't see how he hurt his bicep on that play.
Well, to me, looking at the video, and I studied video for 17 years, literally, I would see a player on the field, on the sideline, in the locker room the next day after an MRI. And I would have about 20 minutes or half an hour to kill before meeting with the GM. I went and looked at film. Why? Because everyone in the NFL building looks at film. So I looked at film, and there I knew the answer because I examined the player and I had the MRI. And I would look at it and look at the video. And now it's the opposite. All I get is the video. I don't get an exam. I have not examined Ed Oliver. But we tweeted out and we talked about on the Sunday evening podcast, the Believe Sports Injury Central podcast, that we believed it was a distal biceps tendon rupture. And the way that he tried to wrap up and grab, it got run through, and distal biceps tendon rupture. And that typically means surgery to reattach it. Otherwise, you're weaker.
All right. So he came kind of out on social media.
So
and
by
said
surgery, are we talking he's we're all screwed up here.
Well, go ahead. I was going to say
with that.
Yeah, same thing. I mean, he said he'd be back for, I believe he said the Super Bowl, right, Sal? He's like, I'll be back just about the time that the Bills were to make something along those lines.
Well,
right?
I can tell you that I'm hopeful that even with surgery, it's not season ending, but it certainly is essentially regular season ending. It may not be season ending. A typical timeline, 3 months. So do the math. 3 months, that's kind of what Ed Oliver is saying, right? That he'd be back for the Super Bowl. Now, could it be a week or two earlier? Maybe. Let's keep our fingers crossed. With 10 weeks to go, the regular season doesn't seem practical, right? But playoffs, sometime in the playoffs before Super Bowl, that's kind of the target.
All right. So if he does hit that timeline, David, is he going to have full strength? I mean, he can get back and play, but with a torn bicep recovering from surgery, is he really going to be functional enough to play?
I think he can be functional enough to play. Would I say that he's 100% healthy? No. I mean, in week 9 here, 85% is a good week, right? And by the time you get to playoffs, there's a lot of that going on. Am I saying Ed Oliver's would be 100% on his biceps? The answer is no. But he also might be well rested in the rest of his body compared to everyone else getting beat up in football. So I think if you can get Ed Oliver out there safely and not have his biceps be 100%, I think Bills coaches and fans would take it in a heartbeat.
Well, you made a similar point last year when we talked to you about Matt Milano, who dealt with a similar injury, and especially with the wear and tear on him, the point about well rested and that sort of a thing by the time you get back in the lineup. But from a rehab perspective, what type of football shape could he be in were he to step into, say, an AFC championship game or a Super Bowl?
Well, there's no substitute for football to get into football shape. However, with this biceps, you're going to see him by the time the end of the regular season rolls around, that you're going to, in the building and in the locker room and on the sidelines, he's going to look normal. He's not even going to be in a sling, right? And the questions are going to arise. Is he ready? Is he ready? Is he ready? And that means, of course, he can do all sorts of lower body stuff and be 100% ready to go and mobile, and a fair amount of upper body stuff, right? And so no substitute for the game of football, but this isn't like a knee injury where you're out of shape and you can't run, you can't get around the edge, and you can't, do a lot. With this being his arm there and the elbow, it's at the elbow. It leads for a quicker runway for return.
Well, since we got you here, I'd like to ask you too about another defensive tackle, DaQuan Jones, who, in the pregame 2 weeks ago or whatever it is against Atlanta, popped a calf, is what McDermott described it as. So they did not put him on injured reserve because I would think they believe he can get back within 4 weeks. What is your experience with a popped calf, whatever that might mean?
Well, calf muscle injuries tend to linger. Is it a grade 1, 2, or 3, right? And the pop, was it a grade 2 pop or grade 3 pop? I don't know. Look, nowadays, it's a good sign that he didn't get put on injured reserve. What does that mean? That means there's a possibility he could play before missing four games. But with the flexible rules now, with the practice squad call-ups post-COVID, it's not as important like every roster spot. It used to be you had to make the move because you needed the roster spot. But now with the practice squad call-ups, it does give teams a little flexibility. And what I see happening is when it's a very important player and there is a chance they can make it back before the 4th week, they stay alive on the roster. If it's, no chance, then I don't care how important you are, you go on IR. And if you're not that vital of a player, they use the roster spot. But he's pretty important. So I can see why the Bills did not put him on injured reserve, but I'm not saying that that's a guarantee he plays before 4 weeks.
All right. Interesting takes, Dr. Chao. Thanks for Sal. Did you have anything else?
No, those are the two that I really wanted to get some clarification on. I mean, we've been waiting on Milano. We just don't know. I mean, it's a pectoral.
Well, the only good news on Milano, the assumption is it's a pec muscle, not pec tendon. Pec tendon would be surgery and whatever. And so we never like re-aggravation, right? I mean, when you return to play and you re-aggravate, that usually means longer. Let's look at, across the country, Brock Purdy. He returned week 3 with the turf toe, re-aggravated it, and now he's been out for a long time, right? And he only missed the 1.5 games to start. Now he's missed a lot more than that. So that is common when you come back and you re-aggravate, that it takes a little bit longer.
All right, Dr. David Chao, we appreciate especially the insight on Ed Oliver and outstanding, like I said, informed speculation at its best. And the hope is Bills fans have their fingers crossed. That's one of their best defensive players. And if they were to get, which is a question at this point with this team, if they were to get as far as the AFC Championship game of the Super Bowl, it would be extraordinarily valuable to have him back. A lot of questions, and I know you follow the game so well. Don't you think in a general sense we'll get a few answers now with the Kansas City Chiefs coming to town on Sunday?
Well, let me tell you something. The Kansas City Chiefs have been lucky so far this season in this way. Obviously, getting Rashee Rice back has been huge. But in week 4 at Sports Injury Central, no one really loved the Chiefs at home against the Ravens. And we said the Ravens had a banged-up defense. Their front line, Kyle Van Noy, it was the early part of their banged-up nature, right? And the Chiefs got them there. And then I think it was in week 6, the Chiefs got the Detroit Lions, just as they had 2 D linemen and 3, both safeties dinged and both corners out. And we're like, we like the Chiefs there. And the Chiefs' luck continues. They're getting the Bills without Ed Oliver now. Your best guy on the D line. We already know about DaQuan. So there's been a little lucky charms for Kansas City and how their schedule has fallen in terms of opposition injuries.
All right. Well, what doesn't involve luck is the Bills passing game at this point.
What else do with the Chiefs, right?
All right. Dr.
Last
Chao,
night,
we'll
they didn't have
know.
to face Hayden Daniels.
Well, point taken, Sal Mera. Dr. Chao, thanks so much for your time. We really
thank you.
Appreciate it. Sal, we're going to continue on. Dr. David Chao, former team physician for the San Diego Chargers at the time when he was with them, and now you'll find him here on Believe and a lot of other places in terms of his informed opinion with injuries as they happen inevitably across the National Football League. I remember, so we had him on the night of the Damar Hamlin situation in Cincinnati. You and I were both in Cincinnati, but Vic dialed him up, and he was on live with us as that was all breaking, and really tremendous insight. So great to have him here on the show as the Bills prepare to face the Kansas City Chiefs Sunday, 4:25 at Highmark Stadium. So minus Ed Oliver for that game, and indefinitely, as the Bills have termed this. What do you do? They've had to deal, with life without him, obviously, since he had the Baltimore game and then suffered the ankle injury in practice. But now what do you do moving forward with some of the options that you currently have?
Yeah, I mean, look, Adam, they've got it's a problem. You've got the only two guys right now are Ogunjobi, who just came back last week. I think he played like 28 snaps, so he's still trying to get himself ingrained into the defense and back into playing football. And Deion Walker, who's been a rock for them all year, a rookie who has some nice plays, but also has some rookie plays. Beyond that, right now it's probably, and we haven't heard anything. It's only Tuesday here, and they don't have to make their roster moves for a little bit, but Jordan Phillips is out of practice squad elevation. So is Zion Logue. So you're probably going to activate one of those two to the 53-man roster. I would guess it's going to be Jordan Phillips. So that gives you three. Then what do? Do you also activate Zion Logue and sign him to the 53-man? Then you got to make a move somewhere. I don't know what they do. I think one thing they could think about, Adam, and we saw a little bit of it against the Panthers, they went with mostly a three-man rotate. Well, they did three-man rotation once Oliver got hurt. And they used Michael Hoyt, who just came back also. And he was inside on some of the obvious passing downs. Now, in that game, there were several obvious passing downs for the Panthers, plus the game was out of hand. So the Bills were afforded the opportunity to do a little of experimenting. I don't know how serious they'd be about that going against the Chiefs, but it's an option. They could still have, they had Javon Solomon active last week, so they actually had 5 edge rushers, and Solomon does play special teams. They could continue to do that, go with 5 edge rushers and just, move Hoyt down inside and go with a 3-man D tackle rotation. It's a possibility. But yeah, they've got some interesting decisions. They still have Fedarian Mathis on the practice squad. He's been up once. I don't know. Do you really want to go with Fedarian Mathis against the Chiefs? I kind of doubt that. So the other thing, Adam, is how about a trade?
That was my next question.
How about our old friend Harrison Phillips? It's already, I'm not breaking news here. It's already been speculated by many people, but his deal, I think I saw that he still has one more year after this from the extension he signed with the Vikings. He's now with the Jets, obviously. I think he would cost, with the proration of his salary, I want to say it's about $1.5 million for the rest of the year. They could fit that under the cap. So you throw a day 3 pick at the Jets. I know it's a division rival, but give them an asset to get a guy back who can come right in, pretty much knows the defense, and can help you right away. That's something that Bean should be considering.
Speaking of informed speculation, I mean, they haven't been shy about bringing back former players. Have they?
No.
I mean, that would
That's
be
a
on
guy
brand.
They liked.
Right.
And they liked him so much. They did not want to see him go, but they just couldn't afford to pay what he was going to get on the market at that time. So I understood moving on, but that's a guy they've always liked. And I could really see him being a nice fit coming back here if they can figure out a way to get him.
All right. Talking about a Kansas City team, obviously with a convincing win over the Commanders last night. As we record this, passing game now very much in gear for Patrick Mahomes and company. We saw Hairston make his debut, rookie first-round pick, Max Hairston, for the Buffalo Bills at the cornerback position. Hancock, we talked about that. Jordan Hancock at safety, with the reps they're getting, both of them now. So let's start to forecast how they're going to try and deal with this Kansas City offense, in particular their passing game.
Yeah, they are a wagon right now. Now that Rashee Rice is back, and you saw him last night, he's fully back. They are weaponized. I mean, this is Mahomes, what he didn't have last year. Everyone said, oh man, Patrick Mahomes is starting to go in decline. No, he's not. He didn't have the weapons that he has this year. He's got Rice back. Kelsey is still playing like a Hall of Famer. It's unbelievable that he still gets open all the time. He's running free last night, half the game. Xavier Worthy, now in his second season, Adam, is a fully functional player. He's no longer a rookie. He's a dangerous threat. And then they've got Hollywood Brown and Smith-Schuster, who are just good, solid veterans. I mean, who do you cover on that team? How are the Bills going to cover those guys? So we talked about this last week. We speculated that Hairston would, if they're going to play him, maybe it was the right time to activate him even after just 3 practices, because he could get his feet wet against the Panthers, who don't have a very good passing game. It worked out like a dream, right? I think he played 28 snaps, 15 were in coverage. So he got his feet wet. He wasn't targeted once, Adam. 15 pass snaps, was not targeted one time. So I know it's Andy Dalton and not Patrick Mahomes, but that indicates to me that he was probably holding down his coverage area pretty well. So that was good. And then they mixed in Jordan Hancock at safety because they realized Jordan Poyer, he's not an athlete anymore. They brought him in on, I think obvious passing downs. And then once the game got on the handed, when he knew the Panthers were going to throw, he played a lot. I think he played 16 snaps total. So that's a way they can combat this Chiefs passing game. Add 2 new kids who have some speed, some athleticism, but man, going against Andy Reid, that's a big, tall task for 2 rookies.
He's got to be. I know they have speed, but Reid has got to be salivating at the thought of that, right?
Yeah,
especially when you have right, exactly. Now, especially when you have a guy like Rice back, and I want to use this point to set up our discussion about the Bills passing game, which obviously bears more time here on the show and warrants it. Look, you bring a guy like Rice back, then that changes sort of the roles of the expectations of everyone else they have in the receiving core in terms of being able to play to their strengths within the scheme, right? They're not asking guys they're not asking a Hollywood Brown to be an A1 versus what he's so I guess everything else, what the high tide raises all boats, right? That's the expression. You get Rice back and you get Mahomes as top target, that elevates everyone else in terms of the passing game. And I feel like if the Bills, that's what they're lacking, right? Is a guy like that deep threat. It's not apples to apples, but someone who can take the top off of the defense and then have other players really be able to play more to their strengths. Keon Coleman's a good example of that, right? And you could point to others on that roster. So I think, what you're seeing is the Chiefs kind of hit their stride, especially it's exponential when a guy like Rice comes back, and that's what the Bills are going to have to deal with from a defensive standpoint. And it accentuates the point of just what they're lacking from an offensive standpoint in that passing game. And I give the fan base credit because coming out of Carolina, 40-9 win, the vast majority of the discussion revolves around, and it's not just the media driving it. It's the passing game isn't right. They are mortal in that compared to what the expectations were and what they'd been in the past. And that's an understatement, right? I mean, I think it
sure is.
If you point to you can talk defense all you want, but if you point to the biggest area, the biggest hurdle they have to overcome in terms of truly, I think, having a really, really legitimate expectation for a Super Bowl in a division title at this point, that enters the discussion. It's they have to diagnose and figure something out in terms of that passing game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Chiefs have got 2 guys that the Bills would salivate to have with Hollywood Brown and Rashee Rice, 2 boundary guys who really have to be accounted for on every play. The Bills don't have that guy. I don't know that they're going to be able to find that guy, Adam. I mean, we can dream all we want about an AJ Brown trade. That's not happening. I mean, the Eagles have kind of pretty much said that they're not going to trade him, which it was a little curious that he was out this week with some phantom injury, and they have a bye this week. So people right away are thinking, oh, they're protecting him from injury and they're going to trade him. I think the cap hit that they would have to take is like $43 million if they move him in a trade. They're not doing that. Plus, why would you trade AJ Brown? I mean, he's going to help you get to a Super Bowl. So I can't imagine that's going to happen. The Saints look like they want to keep Chris Olave, which understandable. Jacoby Myers' name is out there. What really is Jacoby Myers at this point? He's another guy, which the Bills already have guys, right? So I just don't know where the improvement is going to come from. Being at the very least to appease the fans, he's going to have to bring somebody in, you would think. I mean, he's got to do something. They can't stand pat. Listening to Joe Brady yesterday saying that he's not concerned about the passing offense. Come on, dude. I mean,
right.
how could you not be concerned? You're the one that's watching the film. How could you not be concerned by what you're seeing? Allen says it after the game. He's not worried about it. Yeah, well, we understand you just won 40-9 and you ran for 3 million yards. I get you didn't have to worry about it Sunday. But what about the previous weeks when it wasn't really working? What's going to happen now when you play good teams? There's a lot to worry about with the Bills passing game. And as we said, I just don't know what they're going to be able to do, Adam, to make it better. I just don't know. It's going to have to maybe come from within, but man, that's an awful big ask.
No, you make it better in the off season, right?
Yeah.
You don't make it better.
You draft somebody.
Sport, right? You got to draft someone or trading for someone. In terms of really measurable impact, that can be very, very difficult to do given what is available. So FanDuel has this, and go ahead.
I was going to say, he's tried this twice, right? Kelvin Benjamin, the first year they were here, bust. And then Amari Cooper last year, that really didn't work out at all. Receivers are tough. It's tough to bring a receiver in the middle of the season and get him ingrained into the offense. And, look, Cooper was probably at the end of his line when he came here, and he ended up retiring at the end of the year. So he was at the end of the line. But I don't know. I mean, Rashid Shaheed, is he the answer? He'd bring some speed, to the team. He'd be a rental because he's as a free agent at the end of the year. I'd be interested in that if they could do it, but it's tough. It's going to be a tough week for Brandon Beane to get something done. And like we said at the start of the show, Harrison Phillips might be the target that they have to go for, or some other defensive tackle, because they're in such dire straits at that position.
Yeah, well, you lose a guy like Ed Oliver, that you got to pivot a little bit in terms of priorities, or it adds to the priorities. I mean, receivers high on the list, but now given depth and impact at defensive tackle, I think that's something I would very much expect them, to try and address in a measurable way. So that's going to do it for us here on Believe in Bills. This is the Tuesday edition. We're going to be back on Thursday and do a deep dive into the matchup with the Kansas City Chiefs. Bills fans obviously very familiar with this opponent, but we'll again try and get a guest on from that market and give some added insight into just kind of how they're really starting to hit their stride. Once again, a victory over the Washington Commanders on Monday Night Football and headed for Orchard Park. Bills 4-1 with Josh Allen at quarterback against the Chiefs. That's during the regular season. Postseason has very much been a different story. But if there's a team that's on the uptrend, I mean, look, Sal, the Chiefs are favored, and they're coming to Orchard Park. That should tell you that Vegas thinks right along the lines that so many of us are.
Adam,
all right, so
I fully expect the Chiefs to win the game. Everybody's going to hate me for that, but look at the rosters, man. The rosters just aren't really. I'm not going to say they're not comparable, but Kansas City has the better team. So I'll give the Bills some points for playing at home this week. That should help. But I'm having a tough time seeing a path to a Buffalo victory. We'll see.
All right. We absolutely will. And we'll see you again on Thursday. Sal Majorana, Rochester Democrat and Chronicle. I'm Adam Benini of WGRZ TV Sports Talk Live, Buffalo. And our thanks to Dr. David Chao, who at the top of this show joined us from out of the West Coast to give us some insight into Ed Oliver and what the chances truly are that he could be back for a deep postseason run or part of a deep postseason run for the Buffalo Bills. Thank you for being with us here on Believe in Bills, presented by FanDuel.